In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we are going to be talking about the Bears 53-man roster and previewing week one against the Tennessee Titans, as well as the Cubs jumping back into the wild card race and the White Sox just absolute descent into the abyss. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. Sure, the season's not going on right now, but that shouldn't stop you from heading on over to icehogs.com, getting yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, tickets, and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Alex, my friend, how are you doing?
I am doing just swell. Had a great long weekend. The weather was great, and I'm just sitting here ready for the upcoming season. I can't believe we're already here. I mean, it felt like just yesterday we were drafting Caleb Williams, and now we're actually going to get to see him play meaningful football in this coming week.
Oh, I know. It seems like it's been an eternity. And it's wild because it hasn't been that much time, but it just feels so long. Um, and you're looking at this team, and we've seen them just night and day difference from where they were under Ryan Pace to just a couple of short years under Ryan Poles, and it's a completely different team.
Yeah, I mean, you have what left from the Ryan Pace era. You have Cole Kmet, Jalen Johnson, Tevin Jenkins, and the
Patrick
long snapper,
Scales,
right? Patrick Scales.
yeah. So
That's it, right? There's nobody else. I don't think so. So obviously
yeah,
Whitehair and Jackson are gone. So yeah, that's what remains.
I think, I mean, Pettis, had he made the team, I think would have, and I think he was a Ryan Pace. But yeah, they're almost completely gone, and only two draft picks with um oh three, sorry, three draft picks, right? Cole Kmet, Jalen Johnson, and Tevin Jenkins, only three
Right,
draft picks.
right.
So yeah, so I mean, we're completely churning over this roster, and we look at it, and you're like, oh my goodness, it's so much for the better.
Well, yeah, I mean, you feel better in a lot of areas on the roster. I mean, outside just the quarterback, but you look at the wide receivers you have, you look at the depth you have in the secondary, you look at the linebackers, you look at your tight ends. I mean, do you remember in the Ryan Pace era when we had like 10 billion tight ends and like all of them were like the third string tight end at best in terms of quality?
Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously Ryan Pace drafted Cole Kmet and brought in Jimmy Graham late, but that was towards the end of the era. And Jimmy Graham was pretty good for the Bears, even though they way overpaid him. And Cole Kmet was young when he first came up and didn't really hit his stride until last year. Now you feel much better about Cole Kmet as a tight end. I feel a lot better about him now than I did compared to last year. And then, you got guys like Mercedes Lewis, who's just a really nice veteran presence in that tight end core. So, yeah, I mean, you could go across the roster really. And if you remember too, towards the end of the Ryan Pace era, you were just mishmashing through wide receivers. Obviously, you had Darnell Mooney, but Allen Robinson, the end was not pretty for him. And you were just kind of going through guys. And at the beginning of the Ryan Poles era, when you rebuilt, you were throwing out Dante Pettis and Equanimous St. Brown out there. And it's like, wow, now you got year two of DJ Moore under an extension. You have Keenan Allen now. You have the Roma Dunze, the potential Roma Dunze. It feels good to at least be able to say, you know what? We can look at this roster and we can say there are guys that you feel like are going to be making fantasy teams that are going to be on highlight reels on ESPN and NFL Network and Fox Sports, whatever is showing highlights or carrying the games. It's not just a mishmash of guys like it once was. And it's still an imperfect roster. It's still flawed. It still needs work over the next year or so, but leaps and bounds better than it was before. How it'll translate to wins, that's remained to be seen.
So should we quickly go through this 53-man roster as it stands today?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm going to start off quick first with quarterbacks, and I was wrong here. I thought that uh, Rippon would be a guy that they could release and put on the practice squad and wouldn't get taken.
So did I.
And here we are. Um, so I don't know if the Bears, I'm sure the Bears were annoyed by that, but I don't think that they are, I guess my guess would be that they're not overly concerned by this. The only situation would be if Caleb Williams goes down with a significant injury, and hold on, uh, is that would be the only time that they would be freaked out and want a veteran. And at that point, I'm sure that they would go and try to find somebody on the via trade or waiver wire or off of somebody's practice squad, just to have a. I don't think you're looking to have Austin Reed play meaningful snaps as a rookie
Not this year, no.
or be your last line of defense.
Right. Yeah, no, I was saying the same thing you were a few weeks ago. So, uh, and he goes in division, obviously, too. I mean, take that as you will. It's not like we're gonna plan to see Brett Rippon play meaningful snaps for the Vikings unless something really goes crazy. But he is in the NFC North now. He is on a rival team. But I do think that Ryan Poles is probably slightly annoyed by that, even if it's not, quote, a big deal.
Yeah. So, the quarterbacks on this roster are two, not surprising, Caleb Williams and Tyson Bagent. And the only concern I have, I think both are talented guys. Obviously, we think Caleb Williams and hope that Caleb Williams is going to be our franchise quarterback for a long time. And Tyson Bagent showed what he can do last year in 4 starts for the Bears. And I think we've seen a big improvement in this training camp. I think he firmly cemented himself as number two. The only concern is that as of right now, I think they're a combined 129 NFL passes, which is a really low number. There's very little experience in that quarterback's room.
Yeah, it's not a lot. It's not a lot. And obviously, your main guy is a rookie, so I really
Um,
thought it would have been
so yeah,
nice
there's
to have
just those
somebody in
backs.
there. Right.
Um, Running backs, we kept 5. We've got DeAndre Swift, Khalil Herbert, Roshan Johnson, Travis Homer, and Kari Blossengame. Um, Nothing too surprising there. I think Ian Wheeler obviously would have made this roster had he not tore his ACL, which we got to see a lot about on Hard Knocks. And, you know, a sidebar here is I'm sure you saw the episode.
I did.
The interaction with Ryan Poles and Ian Wheeler in Ryan's office really speaks volumes about who Ryan Poles is a person and a GM. And
Yes,
I I liked seeing it.
I
You know,
did too.
this is a really cutthroat industry business, and the fact that he's being successful in this realm while still being human, that says a lot.
The fact that he's like, hey, you can be with us if you need to talk, you need to cry, you can give me a call anytime. I mean, that really is the kind of thing that I've wanted to see on Hard Knocks. I really wanted to see Ryan Poles and his human side and how he handles things like this. That's what I've been waiting to see on Hard Knocks. And that was just that to me, I think made what I thought was overall a pretty blah episode really, really good at the end there. And it's obviously it's a very unfortunate thing to happen with a season-ending injury, but the way Ryan Poles handled that, like I said, that's the kind of stuff I wanted to see and get highlighted on Hard Knocks.
Oh, absolutely. So, um, just seeing him being so encouraging to Ian Wheeler and, basically telling him that he's a part of this team and that he's there no matter what, if he just needs to talk. That sends a good message to any players in this league, any future players, the agents, and the rest of the team in general, and Ian Wheeler, because I think this guy. I mean, we saw it in Hard Knocks. They really, the was really riding him hard. I think they expect a lot of good things from Ian Wheeler. So uh, it'll be neat to see him being healthy and getting a full shot at making this team as a running back, especially when I don't, you know, assuming he bounces back healthy and is ready for training camp next year. And I don't think Khalil Herbert is coming back.
I don't think so either. I really don't. And I never doubted he was going to make the roster this year, but I know there were some people who were like, we're pretty sure, but not 100% sure. So, yeah, I mean, to your point, I do think that Khalil Herbert's days as a Bear are not for long. So, yeah, I mean, I thought Ian Wheeler because listen, we see camps every year where some undrafted guy has a big preseason game and stands out, and you're like, oh, what about this guy? And then they just kind of fade into oblivion. But I think Ian Wheeler was actually showing some signs of promise uh, to have a chance making the roster. I really do.
Yeah. Let's see. Wide receiver, Bears kept six, not surprising. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Roma Dunze, DeAndre Carter, Tyler Scott, and Velus Jones Jr. And I think DeAndre Carter really lucked out. I think Dante Pettis was probably going to take that spot, but he had some sort of injury and they put him on IR, so he is done for the season.
Yeah, because I was even saying a few weeks ago how I thought Dante Pettis, in my opinion, had a real good shot to make the roster, considering the fact that Dante Pettis has played with Matt Eberflus before. He was on the Bears in 2022, but situation calls for it. And I mean, in my opinion, I think past your top three receivers, which are really stinking good, you got a lot of questions beyond that. Now, I do think Scott might be able to develop into something useful. I don't really know what to think about Velus Jones anymore. And Carter, meh, we'll see. But at least, like, and I'm not saying Dante Pettis was a barn burner or anything, but it was nice to have a guy that knew what kind of team he was playing for, even with a new quarterback and a new coordinator. Like I said, he played with Matt Eberflus before, played on the Bears before, but hopefully your top three guys are healthy and productive enough where it doesn't mean as much. Because we've seen in years past where if Allen Robinson's not playing or if Darnell Mooney's hurt, then boy, things really fall off. But right now, you have three guys where you're like, wow, this is something you can depend on. We know how good DJ Moore is. We know how good Keenan Allen is, even though he's getting older. And Roma Dunze, obviously, as a rookie, sky's the limit.
Um, Velus because as the general consensus with the fans is they hate him and want him jettisoned. But from what I hear and what's been reported, it seems like the coaching staff feels completely different about Velus Jones than the fan base. And I wonder if he's going to show us something that he's showing the coaching staff that the fans haven't seen yet, and what that'll be, and how he'll perform this season because he's going to get extra responsibilities
Yes.
um, as a running back, as the kick returner. and as a wide receiver in spots. And I think they're gonna have gadgety plays where they just get him the ball in open space and see what he can do. And I don't think the last offensive coordinator was willing to do that. And we saw in preseason that in spots they were doing that. And I think we'll probably see that more as the season goes on. So it'll be interesting to see because I think I'm not as down on Velus Jr. as most Bears fans, but I also know for a fact that this is a make or break year for him.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you have a good point there. Like you said, he hasn't been utilized as much in the past, and I want it to work out. I really do want Valus Jones to work out. I know that there was the stigma against him about being a little older when he was first drafted, which that to me never really bothered me. It's just, if you're going to have this roster spot for the third straight year, eventually you got to prove your worth. Now, I'm not saying that Valus Jones is taking an opportunity away from somebody else. I mean, what's really the alternative to Valus Jones Jr.? It's just I really want to see him have solidified value on this team. I mean, really, the most value I saw from him so far was towards the end of 2022. He played better. And I'm not looking at him to be their fourth best wide receiver. I'm looking at him to be, like you said, a gadgety guy that could do some things on certain plays and potentially be a good special teamer. That's really what I'm looking for from him. And if he proves his worth, great. I hope he does it. Like I don't know what we're gonna get. I don't have a reason for me to go up and say, oh, you better watch out for Valus Jones this year. He's gonna prove something. I'm not saying he can't, but I'm not gonna put my money on it either.
Right. Tight ends, the Bears kept three, which is not surprising at all. Cole Kmet, Gerald Everett, and Mercedes Lewis. I think they really wanted to keep Brendan Bates on the practice squad, and he got signed away by the Jets, maybe. He got signed away by somebody, and I'm sure the Bears were annoyed by that because um, I think they wanted him to be the Mercedes Lewis replacement, probably next year. Um, but you know, he's that he was that kind of guy, and I think that they just wanted to get him some experience under his belt before they let Mercedes Lewis go because Mercedes Lewis obviously is a valuable piece to this team for what he contributes as a veteran and as a professional and still as a blocking tight end. And that shows because they made him a captain.
Yeah, no, I think that's well said, but I feel pretty good with what we have. If Cole Kmet's healthy, then feeling pretty good about that. And I hope that he continues to do what he did last year and continues to grow on it because I said before last year, my big frustration with Cole Kmet those first few years is making contested catches and being able to outmuscle a defender. And I just felt like we saw him do a better job overall as a receiving tight end really kind of come into his own. And give him credit too. He seems like a really good teammate and I think a really big culture setter on that squad. So keep feeding Cole Kmet. And I think that him and Caleb Williams are going to have a pretty good chemistry. I feel pretty good about that.
Offensive line, Bears kept Braxton Jones, Tevin Jenkins, Coleman Shelton, Nate Davis, Darnell Wright, the starting five, Ryan Bates, Matt Pryor, Doug Kramer, Karan Amagaji, and Bill Murray. Um,
We came, we saw, we kicked its ass. Isn't that so fitting? The Bears have a guy named Bill Murray.
uh,
Can you get any better than that?
that would have been amazing.
I mean, it, it's it's so fitting. It's so fitting. And now, whenever somebody says his name on Twitter, somebody either quotes or replies with the GIF of Bill Murray putting the bear down hat on from I think it was from 1985.
Yeah. You know, I'm sure you agree with me. Maybe you don't. I'm I'm nervous about this offensive line
I'm
moving forward.
very nervous about this offensive line.
If the starting five play healthy and play all five guys for a majority of the season, I think this is an okay offensive line. Nothing spectacular, but I think they're good enough to be to to make the playoffs.
I agree, but here's the problem. You know that they're not going to be 100% healthy 100% of the time.
Right. We Braxton Jones was hurt a lot last year. Tevin Jenkins has not played a full season at any point. Came out of college with an injury. Nate Davis missed a bunch of time last year. Um, and Ryan
Is he
Bates
even going to
was
play?
who knows. Um, Ryan Bates was supposed to be in the competition for starting center, but he was injured. So Coleman Shelton won out by default. And Karan Amagaji is just coming off an injury. So Doug Kramer was a guy that is coming off an injury. So you have a lot of injury concern with this offensive line. And, I think it was, I don't know, the other day I heard an interview on the radio with Ryan Poles, and he was saying that he thinks this is really good depth on the Bears offensive line. And, I'm not going to doubt him and crap all over him, but I'm also not going to just believe it because he says it.
Well,
I
I mean, what
want,
else is he going to say?
I mean, he could say like, oh, that's, we're still working on the depth here, or like, or, we're not a complete team. He said he really liked the depth, and that it was the deepest offensive line that he's had since he's been here. And
Which
so
isn't wrong, but that's not necessarily a high bar.
fair. That's truly fair. But I'm nervous, and this this is going to be the Achilles heel of this team, the defensive tackles and the offensive line.
Well,
So,
and people want to obviously bring up first and foremost protecting your rookie quarterback and obviously having your center on the same page with you with snaps. I mean, that stuff all matters and that stuff is a big concern. But uh, one thing that I want to bring up is, what else an offensive line needs to do is open holes for your running backs. And
mhm.
I'm very worried about that because I do think with the running backs you have, you'll be able to make some plays on the outside. We saw that in preseason, and you have a shifty guy like DeAndre Swift. But here's the thing is what I really worry about with this Bears team as a whole is being able to pound it up the middle because guess what? You're going to have to do that if you want to win football games in the NFL. I don't care what some people say. I get it's a passers league, yada, yada, yada. I get it. You still need to run the football in the NFL. And you need to pound the ball up the middle in crucial points of a game. Whether you're trying to get a first down, a 3rd and 1, whether you're just trying to get first downs to eat clock, control the game, you need to run the ball. And I really am nervous about how effective this team is going to be running up the middle. And we're going to get to that conversation more when we get to when we talk more running backs and more offense as we go along this season. But that is one of my honest concerns, truly.
Yeah, I agree with you. Um, and if Biff comes back from the future and tells me that, oh, hey, this offensive line played really well, I'm guaranteeing you it's because the starting five stayed healthy. Because Tevin Jenkins, when healthy, he's a very good guard.
Very good. It's night and day when he plays versus when he doesn't.
Nate Davis, when he plays and he's healthy, is a pretty darn good guard. It's why the Bears gave him a bunch of money. Coleman Sheldon has started a lot of games in this league. Braxton Jones has been an okay left tackle, and I think he has a lot of room to improve, and I think he has the opportunity to improve. And Darnell Wright was a top 10 draft pick. So there's the potential is there to be, a decent line. It's just the hardest part about offensive line, and any former offensive line will tell you, it is working as a unit and playing a lot of snaps together. And last year, the offensive line was abysmal. And you saw how many combinations. Did the starting five ever play together? I I don't think so.
No.
Um, just this, you had such a mishmash of guys in and out of that offensive line. There was no continuity, and I'm hoping beyond hope that we see good continuity. But history is not on that side.
No, no, it's not. And when you have that in the NFL, it's really rare for it to kind of do a 180. I mean, you can hope for it. Things have happened, but when you play in the NFL and you play that position, staying healthy throughout an entire season when you have battle scars is really, really tough to do. And that's why you build depth in every position. I mean, even if you're a healthy guard or lineman, wherever you are, center, guard, tackle, you could be durable for your first 3, 4 years. You're one injury away, and then next thing you're struggling to stay on the field 8, 9 games for the next several years. So that's why you got to have that reliable depth. And I mean, listen, I know there are people, and I remember Doug Kramer on Illinois, and I know there are people who like him, and I know the Bears really seem to like him. So hopefully he can be something on this team because you're going to need all the help you can get.
Defensive ends. The Bears kept six. They kept Montez Sweat, Demarcus Walker, Daryl Taylor, Dominique Robinson, Austin Booker, and Daniel Hardy. I was really happy Daniel Hardy made this roster. I thought
Me
he
too.
showed a lot. Um, Austin Booker showed some good flashes, and it was no brainer he was going to make it because you just drafted him and spent a future pick to move up to get him.
And you saw what he did in the preseason.
Yeah. Dominique Robinson, little surprised. I think this kind of shows that Ryan Poles is attached to his draft picks. Um, so we'll see how he progresses in the season. Uh, but I was a little surprised they kept six, um, but and only four defensive tackles. My assumption is that they're going to kick Demarcus Walker and Dominique Robinson into tackle on passing downs to get more pass rush. Um,
Because you're going to have to generate it, obviously in certain situations.
right. And Demarcus Walker and is a big enough guy, has played defensive tackle. You're not going to put him in there on running downs, obviously, but in those passing downs, he's gonna be able to generate more pass rush through the middle. Um, so there's a lot of untapped potential as far as these defensive ends, but there's really only one proven guy here, and that's Montez Sweat.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at him to be a Pro Bowl, all pro level pass rusher. And you know that teams are going to scheme against him. So you're going to have to generate it from other areas. I really hope Austin Booker continues what he did in the preseason. Obviously, there's a reason the Bears moved up to get this guy, but you listen to what a lot of the experts say, what a lot of the analysts say. A lot of people are pretty high on him.
Yeah,
There will be expectations, obviously. So people will be keeping a close eye on him, and I hope he can deliver. It's a big ask.
yeah. I mean, Austin Booker has got a lot of shine on him, and Taylor is a guy that the Bears feel like they can they can untap that potential that he showed in Seattle. Um, Robinson is clearly a guy that Brian Poles likes, and Daniel Hardy is a guy that played very, very well in the preseason. So there's a lot of there. I mean, there's potential here, but you've gotta develop it and have some patience with it because you're going to see some inconsistencies.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Defensive tackle, Bears kept four: Javon Dexter, Andrew Billings, Zach Pickens, and Chris Williams. Not a ton of surprise here. Um, is Andrew Billings and Javon Dexter are going to have to be very good. Uh, Zach Pickens is going to have to pick it up, and they're going to have to get the untapped potential out of Chris Williams because there's not a lot of depth here. and there's not a lot of proven track record here. Andrew Billings is a very good run stopper, no pass rush. Javon Dexter is
Which
going
is
to have to.
okay because you do need some. I mean, obviously, I think a linebackers will help you a lot with that, but it's not a bad thing to have a run stopper either.
Oh no, not at all. I mean, that's the reason that they kept him around. But Javon Dexter is going to have to apply pressure because that's the only pass rush you're really counting on in the middle of this
I'm
defensive line.
cautiously optimistic. I kind of liked what I saw from him towards the end of the year.
Yeah, he's just going to have to. He's going to have to, play out. Um, Linebacker, I was a little surprised here. Not terribly. Tremaine Edmonds, T.J. Edwards, Jack Sanborn, no brainers.
Yep.
And then after that, I thought Micah Baskerville did enough to make this roster, but um, Noah Sewell made it over him again. I think because he was a draft pick. Athletically, he is a much more gifted athlete, but the guy has just not been healthy. Um,
No.
and Amin Agbangajiga, I'll never be able to pronounce that. He made the roster and he showed some rough moments early on in the preseason, but you really saw him pick it up towards the end and make a name for himself. So I think he deserved it. But I would have taken Micah Baskerville over Noah Sewell. But, we're splitting hairs here. We're talking about the fifth linebacker on a pretty stacked defense.
Yeah, because when you're talking about on paper, you feel pretty good about your top three guys.
Yeah. Especially when most of the time you're only going to be playing two linebackers. So Jack Sanborn be able to fill in for either one of those guys, you feel good about that depth.
Yep.
Cornerback, they kept six, not surprising. Jalen Johnson, Tyreek Stevenson, Kyler Gordon, Terrell Smith, Josh Blackwell, Jalen Jones. Um, that's uh I I was a little bit I thought Stroman would have made this team, but he didn't. And a little surprised. And he did not go to the practice squad, but Reddy Stewart did. So they were able to sneak Reddy Stewart in, which is fine. If you get to that seventh cornerback, you're probably already in trouble. But um, this cornerback depth is really good, and I think there's going to be quite a few interceptions this season.
I sure hope so. I mean, you got the personnel to do it.
Safeties, they kept four: Jaquan Brisker, Kevin Byard, Elijah Hicks, Jonathan Owens. Nothing terribly surprising there.
Nope.
Um, to return at some point. He had a surgery, so I think they said they expect him to miss like a month or so of the season. So they signed long snapper Scott Daly, who's a local kid, but he's currently on the practice squad. So they'll have to elevate him for game day.
Yeah, that was kind of a bummer. Because long snapping, you might not think it's important, but it kind of is.
Right. And it's weird because they kept a long snapper who was filling in for Patrick Scales all through training camp, and then they cut him. And I'm like, why wouldn't you have brought somebody else in if you didn't think he was a dude to get them acclimated with the team?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they didn't like what they saw.
So I don't know. But that's your Chicago Bears, and we'll see what the active game day roster is. They haven't on the website updated the depth chart at all since July. So, we won't be able to see that for you know, another few days or a week or so, but that's I think we know what the starting uh team is and how the depth kind of looks right now, but um yeah, we'll see if they make any roster moves before week 1.
Yeah, so, obviously you're going to have Tyson Bagent starting at quarterback, and I'm kidding.
Um but I was so we've got week 1 against the Tennessee Titans, and I was like, oh, okay, this should be a good opponent. They're not a great team. And I started looking them on their defense, and I was like, all right, this uh this defensive line is pretty decent. Um, and so is their defensive backs. And I was like, oh, maybe this is a little bit tougher of a team than I thought. And then I started looking at their offensive skill players, and I was like, okay, um, this is actually a pretty good team here. Uh, I think this is going to be a much tougher game than I anticipated.
Yeah, I agree. And didn't Will Levis play pretty good in preseason for whatever that's worth?
Yeah. So Will Levis is going to be. I think they're going to have to live or die with what the Bears are able to do against Will Levis because their wide receivers, Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd, and DeAndre Hopkins. Um, I know some of them are a little long in the tooth, but that is not a scrub group of wide receivers.
No, I mean they're not nobodies. I mean DeAndre Hopkins is up there, but we've seen old guys rip on the Bears before. But honestly, yeah, I mean there's obviously a lot of optimism, but this is by no means a gimme win here in week one. And I mean, no football team, as easy as one might opponent might be, you can never completely disrespect any opponent in the NFL. But what seemed like a very winnable game, obviously, I'm not saying it's not a winnable game, but it's not going to be a walk in the park that I think people think. Now, obviously, they could end up winning big. You never know what's truly going to happen. But yeah, I mean, you're not playing the Carolina Panthers here. And I don't think anyone was ever thinking that, but it is one of those teams where you look at more and more and you're like, maybe this is going to be a little tougher than we thought.
Yeah, that the left side of that line is actually pretty darn good. You got J.C. Latham, who was a really high draft pick in the first round this year. Peter Skoronski, who is a really, really, really good guard, arguably top three guard in the league. And then the big free agent acquisition in Lloyd Cushenberry at center, who the Bears did try to sign. So that's a formidable left side of the line. And they got Tony Pollard at running back, and again a little long in the tooth, but you've got you've got a pretty good offensive line over there. So I think this is going to be a much tougher matchup than we had anticipated. Um, so hopefully the Bears are able to pull this one out.
Yeah, and I'm not going to act like they're obviously the Chiefs or anything, but I'm totally with you. I am totally with you. And I would not be surprised if things start off kind of slow. I could be completely wrong, but this is going to be Caleb Williams' first game, his very first game in the NFL that actually means something. And every starting quarterback in the NFL has growing pains when they're rookies, whether they're a first year rookie, a third year rookie, whatever. But what I mean by third year rookie is you're not technically a rookie, but you haven't started regularly in the NFL
Jordan
for a
Love
few
last
years.
year.
Right, exactly. Like that. Exactly. So, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, if you would have told me that in the fourth quarter it was going to be a really nitty-gritty battle, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that the Bears don't go with a really, really conservative offensive approach. I don't want them to open it up and, leave, like put this all on Caleb Williams' back game one of his rookie season, obviously. But I also don't want him to treat it like he's he's your third string quarterback and you're just going to try to play field position game. I I don't want you to do several three and outs trying to establish the run and have it not happen. Um, you know, get get him moving, get him rolling out some short passes, get his confidence up, and then take your shots. I want to give him opportunities. I don't want to put him in uncomfortable third and longs right off the bat.
Agreed.
And I
Agreed.
think I think that's going to be the key is which defense is going to put the young quarterback in the most uncomfortable position.
Yeah, That Titans team got some dudes.
Will Levis has a big arm, and my hope is as a young player that he's too impatient and wants to go deep and take big shots. And against that cover two, they're going to take that away. Um, but I don't know if he's going to be patient enough to dink and dunk and take what the defense gives him. And Caleb Williams, it's can that offensive line protect him? And if so, are they going to let him have some opportunities to throw passes and try to maneuver in this offense? Like I would like to establish the run, but I also don't want to have Caleb be in third and longs on, if you don't have to.
No, I agree. And what I'm really hoping that Caleb Williams is willing to do is in his first game, take your checkdowns when they're there. Don't always go for the big play. Take the checkdowns because that can obviously be one way you can avoid that situation. Obviously, establishing the run in a good way can help you just go out there and get chunks of yards. But if you're taking your checkdowns, at least you could say, okay, say you're throwing on 2nd and 9 and you take a 6, 7 yard check down, well, then that third down is much more manageable. And you can do the same thing if you run, but if you're not running efficiently, when the checkdowns are there, take them. I'm not saying be conservative, don't take the deep shot every time either. Like you were alluding to, it's all about balance. When the deep shot's there, you take it. But as a rookie, adrenaline pumping, first game, home crowd, I'm sure it might be tempting to go for the big flashy plays. I mean, it's just kind of human nature. So, like I said, there's nothing wrong with taking a bunch of checkdowns as long as you're moving the field, you're moving the ball downfield.
Yeah, and I think if I'm the Bears, um, I'm looking these cornerbacks. They've got some good cornerbacks on the Titans team in a Woozy and L'Jarius Sneed and Roger McCreary. But the next depth up is Jarvis Brownlee Jr. is a fifth round draft pick rookie. Um, if I'm the Bears, I'm going to try to you know do some four wide receiver sets and put the pressure on Brownlee to be able to cover Tyler Scott or Velus Jones, somebody who's both the guys have elite speed. And those other corners, look at them because uh you know you've got DJ Moore who can probably beat any cornerback in the league, and uh Keenan Allen, who's one of the best route runners. So you can look at some of those routes he's going to run, and you look at that height speed combination of Roma Dunze. Odds are one of them is going to beat their man, but you put that fourth receiver in there and really put the pressure on them. Uh, you know, once you've established that your offensive line can protect, is I would go into some four wide receiver sets and really challenge Jarvis Brownlee. I think that is going to be a matchup that the Bears can take advantage of
Sure, that makes sense.
because you're going to take it's especially if you've got the speedsters and you're going to run a deep route, is you're going to have a safety going over the top, both because it's a young player and it's a speedy wide receiver. And that's going to leave one of the big three, probably all three of the big three, one on one. And somewhere coverage is going to break down.
What I'm wondering is how many times early in the game are we going to see Caleb Williams roll to his left or to his right? How long is he going to be able to stay in the pocket? How long is that going to hold up?
I mean, they've uh they've I think they got to roll them out because I don't think that pocket is going to be that clean.
I don't
And
think so either.
I know I know in an ideal world, you'd love to do, you know, take the snap, 1, 2, 3, the ball out and make it so it's a moot point. But I think these defensive backs are good enough to be able to hold that coverage. So I think, and we've seen in the preseason that even when Caleb Williams steps up into the pocket, it's not stepping up into a clean spot, avoiding the outside rush. It's dancing around, pressure up the middle. And so he's not able to just step up and throw. It's hold ball in two hands, step around, and then reposition your throwing. So you're not getting that advantage as much. So I'm hoping that line holds up a little better so he's able to step up in the pocket. But I think we're going to see a lot of rollouts here.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Um, Fun facts. Keenan Allen has scored at least one touchdown in each of his last three September appearances against AFC South opponents.
What an obscure ESPN level stat. I love it.
uh, and Tony Pollard has scored at least one touchdown in four of his last five appearances against an NFC North opponent.
Uh-oh.
So, um, yeah, the Bears are open in this game. I think 4.5 point favorites. So Vegas does like them slightly above neutral site, but the Bears being at home, they get the extra three. Um, so I'm I'm gonna be in full meat bill paraphernalia with a big ladle and ready to pour some meatball sauce on myself come Sunday.
It's excited, nervous anticipation for this game because this is the beginning of the Caleb Williams era. This is the beginning of an era that to me just it feels make or break for my fandom because the way I see it is we've never had a quarterback with this ceiling before. And we talked about how big of a ceiling Justin Fields had when we last drafted him. Obviously, he was the one before Caleb Williams, and obviously that didn't work out. But truly, I mean, they've never drafted a quarterback number one overall before. And Caleb Williams wasn't just, oh, he just happens to be the best quarterback in this draft. It's like he was the number one overall pick consensus. Now, again, that doesn't translate to on-field success, but what I'm saying is we've never had a player with this high of a ceiling at the quarterback position. It feels, and look how we got here. We needed to strip a team that was old, expensive, down to the studs. Needed to completely strip it all down. And we needed to tank just perfectly to get the first number one overall pick that we got after the 2022 season. And that required a Davis Mills Hail Mary pass in week 18 where it was inches away from being tipped or intercepted. And then you needed to find the perfect trade partner who was willing to give you a king's ransom for that pick. And by the way, that team that you got that trade from had to go, what was it? 2-15? Was that the Panthers record last year?
Yeah, I think so.
2-15. Needed to go 2-15 to have the worst record in football to get the number one overall pick to get Caleb Williams. Every star aligned for you to get here. And now it's here. And it's like if this doesn't work, nothing else will. So the anticipation, the excitement, and the somewhat nervousness is already really hitting hard right now.
What's funny is we still have another draft pick coming in this Caleb Williams or in this that trade that we got Caleb Williams in. We still have the second round pick of Carolina coming in the next draft.
Crazy. Crazy.
And if Carolina ends up being the worst team in the league, which is possible, then what'll be nice, we'll get the number one pick in the second round, and the Bears will probably look to flip that one and make more draft picks out of that because you always see because day one of that NFL draft is the first round, and then day two starts with the first pick of the second round. So you have front office staff, they're reshuffling their boards, they're relooking at their needs, they're looking at how the draft board went in the first round. And there's going to be a lot of teams that want to trade up to get that first pick in the second round to eliminate, losing out on a guy that they're coveting. And it gives them, several hours, the better part of a day to really, salivate and start, bidding against themselves to try to get that and look for Ryan Poles to try to flip that if he gets the number one pick in the second round and flip that for, you know, uh, a lot of draft capital.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane. We made that trade with the Panthers. Oh, it was early 2023, wasn't it? In
Yeah,
those first few months.
it
And we'll be
it was pretty
going,
quick.
yeah, and then we'll be going into 2025 with still a pick from it. And we extended DJ Moore.
Yep. It's the trade that keeps on giving.
Yeah. It, well, I mean that's what jump started this whole thing because you took a full season to get rid of it. And then boom, the jump start to this next regime was that one trade with the Carolina Panthers. That was, as I understood it, mandated by ownership because it wasn't the owner the one that wanted Young.
Yes. Yes.
So
From
the
my understanding is the head coach and the quarterback coach wanted CJ
CJ
Stroud.
Stroud, yeah.
So it did not work out well for them. And that's what you get when you have an owner that tinkers. It's you've got to step back. You hire football people, let them be the football people. If they're not good at it, fire them and get different football people. You know, the if you're consistently hiring bad football people, then that's a problem. Like that's where the Bears were in for a long time. But at least George never tinkered. For all of his faults in hiring the wrong people, he was never a tinkerer.
It's just you kept Ted Phillips in that role for way too damn long.
Oh, absolutely. He made a ton of mistakes. There was all kinds of issues in George being a mess up, but at least he was never a tinkerer where he went in and mandated this. He was like, no, we're not doing this, or no, you have to draft this guy. It's at least he kept his nose out of that, and that's small miracles.
I mean, I know coaching decisions were different, but yes, when it comes to roster and draft, it seemed like that wasn't the case. And I feel like obviously they've always tried to quote trust their guys, but I really feel like, and maybe this is just my recency bias, I could be completely offset here, but I feel like there's a really nice trust that ownership has with Ryan Poles. I feel like they really feel comfortable with him.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So
Um,
stay on your scooter, keep your purple crayon, keep drawing Grimace eating grapes, and leave that to Ryan Poles. Keep leaving that to Ryan Poles. And then, you can have Kevin Warren figure out whatever hell mess he's doing with the stadium.
uh, so, um, let's see what else we have with the Bears. I'm looking at Tennessee Titan forums, and their fans feel that the best opportunity they have is being able to pressure Caleb Williams, which I think probably makes sense.
Yeah, you put pressure on a rookie quarterback, of course.
And their big concern is their rookie left tackle against Montez Sweat, which uh, that's I would be probably nervous with that too.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I don't think we're in for any surprises, but week one of NFL is always weird.
It's always very weird, and especially when you have a quarterback making his first start ever. And hey, remember the 2022 Chicago Bears, the team that lost more games in franchise history than any other team, beat the frickin' 49ers in a monsoon week one. And the 49ers in that monsoon game looked completely helpless in the second half. So, yes, weird things happen week one. Happens all the time.
Yep, the Bears just have to be uh they have to be prepared. And that's on Flus. And that's one thing we haven't talked about is, you know, I know Hard Knocks has given Flus a lot of love. And for the most part, we've walked back, not walked back, we've tempered our criticisms of Flus on, because of all the talent that we've brought in as an organization this offseason. But if you remember a big chunk of last season, the first several weeks, I think a lot of people, writers, fans, former front office people, were all calling for Flus to get fired mid-season.
I was.
Yeah.
And frankly, I still need to see more from him. I'm obviously, you said all the right things in preseason. I think he articulates his thoughts much better now than he did over the past 2 years. I think he's really gotten better at that. I don't doubt that he's a good leader of men, but there's still a lot of things that he has to win me over because remember, last year he started 0 4. And not only did he start 0 4, one, his fourth loss was that historic loss to the Broncos. Wasn't that was either their third or fourth game, wasn't it?
Something like that.
And then you remember too, you had the debacle with the coaches. You remember that he had to let some guys they had to let some guys go
Yeah,
for undisclosed reasons,
to fire their defensive coordinator.
which is a massive flag. Now, when Eberflus took over the defense and got Montez Sweat, the defense looked a lot better, but still, it's like, okay, what's going on here? And whether or not you can really fault Flus for that, that's still one of his staff members under his regime. So you had some questions there. And oh, I want to say it was week 3 last year when they went to Kansas City and they got whooped so bad where they didn't even look like an NFL team. And obviously, we didn't expect them to beat the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City, but you were beaten so bad, it looks like you couldn't function. And we were kind of sitting here thinking, what are we doing? Now, as the season went on, you got better. However, you still lost two absurd games, one against the Lions, one against the Browns, and Matt LaFleur still coached circles around you in the final week of the season. They still owned you. And listen, I'm not trying to bring this whole thing down, but do keep in mind that towards the end of the year, yes, you beat the Lions at home and you beat them good. That was a signature win. But you beat a 3-win Cardinals team. You beat the Panthers. You beat Tyler Heineke and Arthur Smith's Atlanta Falcons.
I mean, you go through this is they got smoked week 1. We're not prepared at all. You
Completely
got
unprepared.
you got beat pretty soundly in week 2. You
What was
got
week 2 again?
Tampa in Tampa.
Right. Where
And,
they were
and
down, almost came back. Right. Yeah.
and they were so not prepared to play in that heat because it was real hot that game.
Right.
And they were not prepared. And everyone called it like, oh yeah, the Bears better be ready to play in that heat. Laid an egg. Then week 3 was at Kansas City, and that was just an embarrassment. Justin Fields didn't even crack triple digits in passing yards. It was abysmal. And then week 4 was the Denver game where they just had the historic
Collapse. Yep.
collapse. And then you go on to beat Washington, who was a really bad team last year.
Right.
Then you lost to Minnesota.
Justin Fields got hurt.
Justin Fields got hurt. You just looked bad. Tyson Bagent was your high passer at 83 yards.
Yeah.
Then you beat a bad Las Vegas team, got smoked by a by the Chargers. Didn't look good at all against New Orleans. You beat you beat Carolina with Tyson Bagent, but it was not a convincing win.
16-13, if I remember the score correctly.
Yep. Then you had that tough loss to Detroit.
Sickening loss.
Yep. Then you squeaked by Minnesota with a backup quarterback.
Oh, that was one of the worst wins I think I've ever seen.
Then you dominated against Detroit.
I mean, that was a signature win. Your defense was flying, your offense was flying, everything was working that day.
Um, you had the absolute just heartbreak loss to Cleveland.
Yeah, which in part was due to Robert Tunyon dropping the pass, Darnell Mooney dropping the Hail Mary that was in his lap. And then if you remember too, Luke Getsy having Darnell Mooney block on a fourth down run, which didn't work.
Luke Getsy. And just an FYI for all those people that are like, everything was Justin Fields' fault and he got Luke Getsy fired. And look how quick Luke Getsy got a job. Watch how bad Las Vegas is going to be this year. Watch how bad they are going to be. Luke Getsy might have got a job right away, but he got a job with a dysfunctional team, and they're going to be terrible. Just my two bits. Uh, you beat up on Arizona, you beat up on Atlanta, and then you lost another game to Green Bay. But I will say the defense played decent in that game. Shit,
Eh,
no offense.
I don't know. I mean, I know the points don't show it, but they controlled that clock most of the game.
Um, I mean, part of that is the Bears' offense was so bad,
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
and it's hard to control that clock. Um, is give that defense some breathing room, give them some time to catch their breath and regroup, and then I'm hoping this is a completely different year against Green Bay.
So am I.
Even if we don't win, I want them. I want this to be a competitive game.
Yeah, because none of the games last year were.
No, so but week ones are weird, and this. I think the Bears are going to win. Vegas seems to think the Bears are going to win. I'm just glad it's at home.
Me too. Me too.
Should we talk a little baseball here?
Sure.
You want to talk Cubs or Sox?
What's there to say about the Sox other than the records that they're chasing?
You know, so the White Sox all-time longest losing streak was 21 games, and it's happened this year. Their third all-time longest losing streak was 14 games. That happened this year. Their current tied for sixth longest losing streak ever was this year, and it's actively going on.
It's
So
three double-digit losing streaks in one
yes,
year.
so you are at 21 game losing streak, a 14 game losing streak, and a 10 plus 10 and counting game losing streak. And you haven't been particularly close in a minute.
No, I mean, when you have like a 2-0 lead against the Orioles today, everyone and their mother said the same thing. It's like, all right, I'll give it to the third inning tops before the Orioles take the lead. And sure enough, that's what happened. And not only did they retake the lead, the Orioles did, but they ended up winning by 10.
Yeah. And I are you looking at the standings?
Yeah, I peeked. They're like what, 40 some games back of the fourth place team or something like that.
They are 48 and a half games out of first place, and they're like 39 and a half games behind Detroit for who is fourth. And if you want to dig into this more, uh, is let's see, who's the second worst team in baseball record wise? Colorado. Do you know how many games behind Colorado? Colorado is the second worst record in baseball. Do you know how many games behind the White Sox are behind them?
Oh boy. I'm gonna say like 20.
20 and a half.
Wow. I swear I didn't look. I swear I didn't look. That was
They,
just a guess.
they are 20 and a half games behind the second worst team in baseball.
That's
Yeah,
insane.
that is absolutely insane. It is currently between the Cubs and the Sox, the biggest gap in the history of those teams' records ever.
Yeah. Jeez. Um, what else gets me too is, and I didn't expect this to make a difference at all, really. I didn't. But remember, you fired Pedro Grifol, rightfully so, because it went beyond the record with Pedro Grifol. It was clear that that locker room was not in good shape, despite what the bootlicking TV announcer says. That clubhouse was clearly in some disarray. I just, what can Grady Sizemore do? Honest to goodness, what can he do?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, it's bad. It's it's bad. I mean, we knew it was bad before the trade deadline, and then you let some guys go. And you're like, we know it's going to get worse, but I don't think. I think we're just seeing new depths of how bad it can be.
Right. And I mean, what doesn't help matters either is I don't know if he just doesn't care anymore, but have you seen Luis Roberts' numbers this year?
They're not good.
No, they're not. This was a guy who was a 38 in that 100 loss season last year for the Sox. You got 38 homers from him, an OPS north of 800, and an all-star appearance from him. He was playing like a superstar you were hoping to get from him, and you're not even getting that this year. And I'm not saying that that's the difference between, 130 losses versus 110 losses, but the fact that you're not even getting production from him is really gotta hurt. Really
Yeah,
hurts.
yeah. I mean, he's batting 219. He's got a sub 400 slugging, a 670 OPS. That is not good enough.
No, no, it's not. For a guy who has 40 home run potential and should be in conversations of MVP. And again, does he not? Because sometimes I see him go up there, flail at three pitches, and then just walk head down to the dugout. I just wonder if there's a mental aspect to this where he's just so checked out of all of this, thinking that he's probably going to be traded in the offseason. But if you're going to trade him, if you're the Sox, his value's at an all-time low.
Yeah. I mean, it's you've got to rebuild that value. And, I just I look at this team and they announced that they're going to or they promoted uh Ariarte, their top pitching prospect. Why? Like what's the point of that? Is why give him a taste of the worst team arguably in baseball history? Like what is he going to gain out of that?
Yeah.
He's I'm a big believer in, like, it's one thing if you weren't good and he gets the taste of the majors. Cool. I'm all for that. But he is getting introduced to a terrible clubhouse with a uh a walking dead interim manager, with a terrible GM, terrible ownership, that's on pace to lose the most games ever. That's just to me, that just looks bad. That just that's like a bad, I think you're doing a detriment to, sure, he's going to be able to pitch, but what what sort of locker room culture is he learning? What sort of like he's not gaining any of that perspective from this squad. I,
No.
I'm you've got to at this point, there's absolutely nothing to gain in this season for this White Sox team. Is you've got everything you're doing has to be for the future. And you've got to ask yourself, is in totality and holistically, is bringing him up worth it? I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I mean, I get your points. I really
Um,
do.
yeah, it just, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I just don't want to put the stink of this club on any young player.
Ugh, I I can only imagine what it feels like just to be in that locker room. I mean, because I don't see any bad dudes here. It's just when you're this bad, there's obviously no morale. And there's clearly something not right with some of these players like Luis Robert because they don't look mentally in it at this point. I mean, the losing's clearly gotten to them. I'm sure a lot of those guys fight hard, but you just really lack talent. Really, really lack talent because you look at some of the guys they're rolling out there, you're like, who the hell is this? That guy's still a thing? It's just not, it's not good. It's just not good. And I feel for Grady Sizemore because I feel like he's getting his first audition tape. And I really hope that for his sake, he's going to get chances in the future, wherever that may be, to be part of a staff, to work somewhere and get a legitimate shot because no one's winning with this, no matter how good of a manager you are. Bruce Bochy wouldn't win with this. And
No,
he's
this
arguably the best manager who's active right now.
uh it's just it's bad. Um and do you know who the out of qualified uh hitters that are still on this team, do you know who is leading this team in OPS?
Um, is it Luis Robert?
No,
Is
he's
it
third.
Luis Robert is third?
Yes, of the qualified hitters that are still on this team.
Is it Andrew Vaughn?
He is second.
Is it are they still on the team?
It is Gavin Sheets
Okay.
at 682.
Oh, oh.
It goes Gavin Sheets 682, and he is currently a negative WAR. Andrew Vaughn 676, currently in negative WAR. Then Luis Robert, who is 670 OPS, and he's got a .6 WAR. Then Andrew Benintendi 654. He's a minus 1.3 WAR. Um, and then was Nicky Lopez, but he just got sent away.
Wait, he did?
I think they released him. I believe
Nicky Lopez?
uh,
Really?
they placed him on waivers
When was that?
4 days ago,
I totally missed
according
that.
according to Kylie McDaniel of ESPN.
I totally missed that.
So let's see, they placed him on waivers, but he hasn't been designated for assignment, so he remains on the roster.
So like Drew Smiley.
So okay, I'll consider him then. He's next at 593. He's a negative WAR. So the leader, the current active player leader on this team in home runs is 15, with Andrew Vaughn and Andrew Benintendi each with 15.
Yeah, a sneaky power surge from Andrew Benintendi lately. So that's something.
But 15 home runs is your home run leader.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not saying it's good.
Your team has 108 losses at this point, and your leader in home runs is 15. This is unbelievably bad.
Again, the fact that Luis Robert couldn't be hitting a bunch of bombs.
It's so bad. This team is unreal how bad they are. Uh, it's just it's I don't even know what to say anymore. I'm honestly rooting for the record to be broken with most losses ever,
A lot of my Sox fan friends are doing the same thing.
and it is
At,
nothing
at this
against
rate, you might as well.
it's uh you know you it's not anything against White Sox fans. It's not hating the team as an entity. It's I'm rooting for it because the owner sat there and said that not interviewing anybody externally and just promoting uh, your failed, you know, was he the minor league player development head, Chris Getz,
Yeah,
to the
yes,
GM,
yeah.
is
Project Birmingham, all that stuff.
if you basically just promoted him without interviewing anybody externally and said that was the fastest path to success, and then followed up 100 loss season with what's on pace for the worst record in the history of baseball. 9 David Ecksteins couldn't have stopped this from happening.
No, no way.
So that's what I'm rooting for, is that Jerry Reinsdorf just has to own this.
Yeah. Yeah, well, he deserves to.
But, you know, for what it's worth, the Cubs have one, two, three, four players that would be leading the White Sox in home runs, and the Cubs are not a power hitting team.
No, they're not.
Um, so uh, it's this team is just brutally bad,
Yeah,
brutally.
it doesn't feel real.
Um, let's see. I'm looking at the Yankees. How many Yankees would be ahead of or leading the Cubs or the White Sox in home runs?
And the Cubs.
And the Cubs. Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, Giancarlo Stanton, Glaber. Oh, sorry, they only have three. They just three of them are really up there. So just very sad. Should we move to the Cubs?
Yep, they just blew a 3-run lead.
Because of course they did. Because of course they did. Oh, one more thing with the White Sox is, yesterday they got shut out by the Mets, and it sucks because Garrett Crochet threw a really nice game.
Yeah, he did. Too bad it didn't mean anything.
It meant absolutely nothing. Um, the Cubs, they've been on a nice streak here, winning a bunch of games. But
Fucking Brian Reynolds just hit a game-tying 3-run bomb.
yeah, very frustrating. But, you know, I'm looking at this and I'm imagining the Cubs probably need to win 17 or 18 more games out of their final 25. It is they've really put themselves in this race. They're 3 games out of the wild card, and they've only got to leapfrog the Mets and the Braves. Like, they're positioned nicely, but I'm guessing that they're going to have to win 17 or 18 games out of their final 25 to legitimately have a shot to make the postseason.
I mean, their chances were only like 6.5 going into tonight. So I mean, the odds are still heavily, heavily stacked against them. I mean, that road trip was insane. You scored 89 runs over what, a 9 game stretch. You scored 14 or more in multiple games. I mean, it was like every day you were having these massive innings, just blowing games open with 6, 7 runs. Obviously, you had the massive rally at the end of the Pirates Road series when you were down 10-3. I mean, you're getting contributions from PCA. He's doing something magical every single day. You have Dansby Swanson hitting much better. You have Christian Bethancourt coming out of nowhere and turning into Johnny Bench. Ian Happ has been nice and consistent. Uh, you're looking at some really, really nice work from Miguel Amaya, who's been hitting much better. It's been just a really nice collective effort. And, hopefully, if anything, it points you to some good things going down the stretch where you could say, okay, we can build off this year. We could say that PCA is looking more and more like a big league player, whether he's having better at bats, hitting the ball better, whatever. So you try to take what you can get here. Um, at least going into tonight, things are interesting. You are a blown game here fully from taking a massive hit. We'll see what happens, but um, yeah, I mean, if anything, it was a hell of a lot of fun. And now the Pirates lead. Oh my gosh.
So
Andrew
annoying.
McCutchen just hit a bomb.
And Tyon pitched a good game.
He pitched great.
This bullpen has been an Achilles heel all year long.
Wow, this would be a gut punch.
Yes. Because I mean, I'm just being realistic, is the odds of them making it, like you said, mathematically, it's like 6.7% or something. But, you look and I think honestly, you're probably going to have to go to 18-7 to make the postseason. And you're like, okay, well, the way they're playing, that's doable. Yeah, if you're playing Washington or the White Sox, but you still have to play a whole series against the Yankees, a whole series against the Dodgers, and a whole series against the Phillies yet this season in those final 25 games. That's that's a big ask against those three teams to go 18-7.
Yeah, it is. It's a huge ask.
And it starts right here. Your season is right here. If you blow this game, your postseason chances are done. And I didn't have any high hopes of this happening, of them making the postseason. But
Oh,
you
but
know,
losing this would be a losing 3-0 lead in complete control, coming back home after that. That would be an absolute kick to the balls.
yep, it would just be it would just be you know super shitty, especially since then tomorrow you have to go against Skeens.
Yeah,
And I know you've probably done as good of a job against him as any team in baseball, but he's really good.
he's very, very good.
Is this you needed this game? You absolutely needed this game, and it's you know it's up to you now. Put your big boy pants on. Can you beat the Pirates bullpen? Uh, you're in the with your last few outs remaining. Can you tie this up, bring it to extras, or take it home? The Mets
We'll
already
see.
won. Mets already won tonight, so you're trying to keep pace with them. Um, I don't know if the Braves didn't play tonight,
No, they did not. They did not.
so you could be gaining on the Braves and keeping pace with the Mets.
Oh boy. But I mean, as of right now, you have 6 outs to work with. It would just seem so fitting how you deliver an absolute gut punch to the Pirates and you sweep them, and then they'd come into your house and return the favor. That's what I'm afraid of.
Um, you know, I just got to ask though here, what if PCA is actually real good?
That would be awesome. That would be awesome.
Um, I was very excited, and then he came up and really had struggles, and I was like, oh, you know what, young player. And then he stayed up, and you're like, man, maybe he can be a useful player, not a star. He's really starting to play well.
Yes, he is. I mean, the at bats look great. The at bats looked really, really good so far. I mean, and he's doing little things that's causing havoc. I mean, once he gets on the bases, he can do a lot of crazy things. And it's like you look forward to him taking at bats.
Oh yeah, and that speed on the bases is lethal. I mean, it is absolutely lethal. Teams have to account for that.
Yeah,
It puts pressure on the fielders when he's on the bases because they can't leisurely make a throw. He's going to be aggressive. They're going to have to anticipate an aggressive, really fast, good base runner um, doing things, and that puts a stress. And we score. What he scored from first on the other day on a hit. Um,
yes,
it just like the kid looks good, and I'm hoping that he can keep that up.
me
Um,
too.
you know,
Because he looks a lot more confident out there.
Miguel Amaya is competing for his long-term job here because there's been reports that the Cubs in the offseason are going to look to improve the catcher position. And Amaya, if it would be nice if he could put a stranglehold on that spot because it would be nice to be able to put those resources towards, I don't know, Juan Soto.
Yeah, well, that's a pipe dream.
I know it's a pipe dream, but we're we're the Chicago Cubs. Why can't we have nice things?
We have nice things, not great things. That's the problem.
I want we couldn't have Otani, who's probably going to be a 50-50 player this year.
Yeah, well, he didn't want to come here, so
Uh, you know, but why can't we just throw that same stupid amount of money at Juan Soto?
because I think Juan Soto's going to demand more, as backwards as that sounds.
He's a really good hitter, but he's not nearly the revenue source as Shohei Otani. He's not as good as Shohei Otani, and that's not a knock. Shohei Otani is great, and he doesn't pitch. He's not, and he just doesn't bring that extra cultural, you know, money in. Juan
Hmm.
Soto is just a really good hitter. That's it. Like
I
this
mean, well, here's the thing. Like, what we offered Shohei Ohtani wasn't enough. I mean, even if he wanted to come here, it still wasn't enough. I'm just saying.
is this has been a really good first year contract numbers for Shohei Ohtani.
Oh, Patrick Wisdom just missed a home run.
Oh, Patrick Wisdom.
Boy, this is the makings of a real gut punch if something doesn't happen here.
Yeah, well, I'm just anticipating it now.
We'll see.
But I mean, we're here. This is where we are, and the frustrating part is Jed Hoyer didn't do anything to. He saw that team last year and was like, okay, they struggled at points, came on at another point, and you know, let's just bring this same team back, and we'll get a better manager, and he'll give us those extra couple wins we need to get over the edge. And that's not the way it worked. And Jed Hoyer really has to have his feet to the fire for the performance of this team.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, even with all the improvements and the good things at the end, your goal is to make the postseason, and chances are more likely than not that you're going to miss it.
I, unless the Mets and the Braves go in a free fall, the Cubs aren't making the postseason.
Right.
So it's just, now Jed's just got another month to sit around and go, okay, where did I go wrong? What did I do wrong? And I don't think he's going to be fired, but boy, his seat better be pretty warm.
Yeah, I mean, he's got one more year left on his deal. I don't think he's going anywhere, but yeah, the seat has to be warm. Absolutely.
He got handpicked for this job, and that's just he's got to own this. He didn't do anything to buoy this bullpen. You and I can pull tapes from the off season talking about how nervous we were about this bullpen going into the season.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And we were hanging our hat on, all right, well, at least they got Hector Neris. And that
didn't work.
That didn't work. But man, we were awfully nervous about everything else. And we were right. And, we said that Cody Bellinger had to come back to maintain the offense where they were, and he's been okay. He hasn't been great with the power numbers. So it's just been really frustrating season. And you had such a bad stretch in the middle of the season.
Killed you.
And it killed you. Yep. All those early season blown saves, all that bad offense in the middle of the season, it bit you hard in the ass.
Yep. You play mediocre over that stretch, you're right in the middle of a playoff race right now.
Yeah. Yep. If you cut the just White Soxian level blown saves early on, cut them in half, and you are in the playoff. You're in that. You're in that race. Not just in the race, you've got a position. You're probably
Correct,
where the Braves are.
Yes.
But the Jed cheaped out on that, and here we are.
It's unfortunate.
Was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Nope, I've said my piece.
All right, I'm going to go position myself so I can see the rest of this game. It's on, but I can't.
Oh, we're down to our last 3 outs now. Boy, this would be a gut punch.
Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. Please hit subscribe, however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, Spotify, etc. Share this podcast with your friends, how we grow the show. Follow us on social media at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com, or ShyFanPat2 for Alex on Twitter/X, or AlexanderJPatCreative.com for all the cool stuff that Alex does. And again, thank you guys so much for listening. Until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like number New Yorkers. Smoking crack is not legal on planes. Bears 31 to -7. The Bears.
Oh, when the Bears go bearing down, I wanna